there's a fireplace in the shape of a minotaur. There are floor-to-ceiling Egyptian murals. There's a Roman altar in the kitchen. What am I talking about? Well, a home for artist Ron Gittins for more than 30 years.
Yes, following his death in 2019, the flat was at risk of being sold, but after several years of campaigning, it's now been granted Grade 2 listed status, as our news correspondent Sophie Long explains.
From the outside, this unassuming end of terrace might look like any other house. But inside, Ron's place is anything but. There was a rental agreement that said Ron could redecorate according to the tenant's taste. And he did. Turns out minotaurs, giant lions, and Roman bread ovens were all to Ron's taste. And on almost every surface, he left his artistic mark. Ron was well known in the neighbourhood, but it was only after he died that people got to see inside his home.
The first time we crossed the threshold after Ron died, it was really like being an archaeologist going into like an ancient Egyptian tomb. And it was just utterly overwhelming. He's always made things and covered his, wherever he's lived in, always rented in murals, as my nan used to call them. But I mean, this was just kind of to an extreme degree.
The discovery was so special, his friends and family just knew it had to be saved. And so they formed Wirral Arts and Culture Community Land Trust. And after a donation last year, they were able to buy it so they could turn Ron's home into a holistic house of art. Now it's a listed building.
The news about the listing is just absolutely out of this world. I mean, it's been such an uphill struggle, a real roller coaster trying to save Ron's, but we were utterly determined. This news just validates our belief in that Ron's place is worth saving.
Ron would, they say, be made up by the listing. As some of his chosen outfits suggest, he wasn't averse to a bit of attention. Sophie Long, BBC News.
Catherine Dewar, North West Regional Director, Historic England, joins us now. Just so people understand, Historic England, you are the people who decide whether something becomes listed.
Yeah, so we're the government's advisor on heritage, and we've recommended to government that this building is added to the National Heritage List for England, and the government has agreed with us, and yeah, Ron's place is now listed Grade 2.
And just go through it for us, because people have their own opinions on what it actually looks like. You've been there, you know. What are the criteria you're judging this for or against?
So there are national criteria that we have to judge it against. It has to be over 30 years old. It has to be of national significance and special architectural or historic interest. So we've done quite a robust assessment, because this wasn't an easy one for us.
Why not easy? Because, I mean, it is just, yeah, it's very unusual, isn't it?
Very unusual, and this is the first time a work of outsider art has been added to the national list. So, interesting kind of assessment that we needed to do. It's not your run-of-the-mill historic building or archaeology, but we've had a great team working on it, and we've had some great research and advice to inform that as well.
Do you know what's encouraging? Because when you think of listed buildings, you do think of kind of fusty, do you know what I mean? Old-fashioned, kind of really elaborate. Not that this isn't elaborate, but kind of old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And this is modern art.
Yeah. And
Historic England is kind of, I don't know if it's changing or if it's trying to help change the perception of what art is valuable in the UK at the moment, or should be treasured, I should say.
I think what's important is that the National Heritage List for England reflects the heritage of England, and that isn't just country houses and castles. That is, you know, everyday heritage that is on the street corner or down the road, hidden in a flat that we didn't know about.
When it's this modern, how do you then, who kind of argues the point that this is important for our heritage? Do you see what I mean? Because you haven't got those decades or even centuries of it saying, of people saying we love this.
Yeah, so that was part of our assessment. Like I said, it has to be over 30 years old, and we know that Ron was working on this for more than 30 years, so it meets that sort of critical criteria.
Is that enough time for something to be deemed as part of our heritage?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
You used the phrase earlier on, outsider art,
Yes.
which I think is a technical phrase. But do you want to explain that? Because on the face of it, I'm thinking a lot of artists think of themselves as being outsiders. You know, it's kind of why they do what they do.
Yeah.
What's that phrase mean in your world?
So in the art world, it means an individual who has had little or no formal training and has created artwork for their own purposes, for themselves. And we're kind of used to paintings. You know, there's paintings in many galleries across the UK that are from outsider artists or been done by outsider artists. But this is the first time that we've seen something of this scale.
So is it someone who hasn't been to art school?
Yeah,
Is it basically boils down to something as simple as that?
Somebody who's had no formal training, but is recognised as being an incredible artist and creator. And when you walk in the flat, you know, it blows your mind. The first time you walk into this incredible environment that it's mind-boggling.
It's like an overloading of the senses,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. Every surface is covered. I mean, you can see from the photos, you know, you walk into the front room and you're greeted by this roaring lion fireplace that he's created and sculpted out of concrete. It's incredible. And all of these paintings that he researched quite diligently, we understand. He was fascinated with history. So you know, lots of historical figures. You know, Cleopatra greets you as you walk in the door.
That Minotaur sticking out the wall.
Minotaur. And then the Roman-style bread oven in the kitchen. You know, his attention to detail was incredible. But for me, the standout features are those sculpted fireplaces because they're incredible.
And many more people now, as a result of this, will get to see it, hopefully. Thank you very much. Nice to speak to you. Catherine Dewar is from Historic England, who made the decision, the recommendation,
That's right.
to make sure it has now a Grade 2 listing.
Thank you.